Oh, it is that time again, my friends. It has been so long. It feels like it has been so long since I have gotten to do a long history video. I've been busy, all right? Long story, I've been too busy to dive deep into the usual videos that I love to make about automotive history. But I'm back. So let's talk all about it. Back to 1905 when the Austin Motor Company was founded by Herbert Austin. Now you might be wondering, what was Herbert doing before founding Austin Motor Company? Well, the old chap was working at the Wolseley Wool Shearing Company. Did I get that right? I think so. Say it 5 times fast. It's not easy. The Wolseley Wool Shearing Company. And what they did was they produced clippers to ship to clip. I knew that was going to mess me up. They produced clippers for wool. Okay, side note, it was the Wolseley Sheep Shearing Company. Neither of them easy to say, but just thought I'd correct myself on that one. All right, so while Herbert Austin is with the Wolseley Sheep Shearing Company, I'm just going to keep saying it until I can say it like butter. He began to fancy these horseless carriages. He began to fancy those early automotives. And you know what he thought? Well, he thought, I'm going to go ahead and create 3 in my spare time. Yes, that's what he thought. He made 3 of the earliest British cars in his spare time over the course, I think it was like 1895 to 1898, all right? Which is very, very impressive. Now, the interesting thing about this, too, is after he made these cars, which were pretty impressive, well, Wolseley, he approached Wolseley and he said, hey, guys, look, this could be our future, okay? It's a little side venture of sheep shearing, right? They said, we don't want to have anything to do with it. So Wolseley, they're like, we don't want anything to do with it. We don't see a history in these horseless carriages, okay? However, some things did work out. He got into a partnership with the Vickers brothers, and they literally made like bells. They were the one producer of bells, and eventually they were bought out by Rolls-Royce. The more you know, all the useless stuff right up in this little useless nugget. All right, so he partnered up with the Vickers brothers, and he actually still somehow came out using the Wolseley name. So he did a branch off with using the Wolseley name, but none of the Wolseley money, and started making automobiles. And quickly they rose, should I say, to being one of the top automotive manufacturers in the UK. And it is at this time that the sea becomes a little bit tumultuous, okay? The Wolseley Automotive Company is doing fine. However, Herbert Austin gets into some kind of a dispute with the Vickers brothers, and he says, peace out. The guy literally leaves one of the largest automotive manufacturers in the UK and starts off on his own. And that is where we circle back around and we get to 1905 for the start of the Austin Motor Company. All right, so now it's 1906 and Austin puts out their first car. It is a conventional 4-cylinder chain-driven vehicle. You get 2 options with it. It was 15 to 20 horsepower for 500 pounds and then 25 to 30 horsepower for 650 pounds. Now, something to keep in mind, that the people that were purchasing Austins at the time were the cream of society, all right? Dukes, duchesses, princesses, bishops, diplomats, yada, yada, yada. Okay, timeline so far. Founded in 1905. First car hits off the production line in 1906. Now, World War I would be around the corner, okay? And like many automotive manufacturers, they did well during the war, okay? Everything went to the war effort. 3-ton trucks, shells, guns, aircraft, all of those things. I mean, that was what a ton of, I was talking about Studebaker, and then who else were we talking about? Basically, war has been good for automotive manufacturers during, sometimes a little bit of a struggle afterwards. And same thing for Austin, they struggled just a little bit right after World War I. But frankly, that struggle that Austin faced post-World War I would actually be a blessing to the automotive world, all right? Yes. Now, why that is, I got like so excited, my mind just went blank. But I know where I'm going with this, okay? Why that was a blessing was this is when Austin decided to go with smaller and more affordable cars. This is when Austin would come out with the Austin 7, okay? Now, the Austin 7 is huge regarding automotive history, okay? The Austin 7 is the reason we have Lotus, okay? Colin Chapman took an Austin 7, first Lotus in his girlfriend's garage, all in his free time. I don't know where these people get the free time. Also, William Lyons and William Walmsley, two buddies in Blackpool, England, took a Lotus 7, reconfigured it, and it was also part of the birth of Jaguar. I know, seriously. Well, just to digress a smidge bit, what they really started doing was swallow sidecars, okay? So they did sidecars, and then they reconfigured the Austin 7, and then eventually they did their own stuff. So that's what we have to thank for the Austin 7. Oh, also, right, I got so excited talking about Jaguar. And if I have one British person get on here and tell me, Jaguar? Hey, I know. I'm from Texas. I just talk really fast. Doesn't matter. Anyways, also the Austin 7 was sold to Datsun, and that was one of the first big breaks for Datsun. Whew. All right. So also, why were smaller cars obviously a bevy of reasons, but why at this specific time were smaller compact cars becoming more favorable to consumers? Well, the British had a tax code in which the engine size was taxed. So in the 1930s, every square inch of your engine was taxed for $2.55. That time money, which is a pretty penny. And really, you can attribute the Austin 7 to saving Austin during the Great Depression, all right? Now, also, I had already mentioned Datsun. I got a little high there talking all about automotive history. It's my thing. Also, in 1934, what really assisted Austin is Datsun licensing the Austin 7. That was Austin's greatest overseas hit, and frankly, obviously, a very big hit for the Datsun company. Feels good. Feels so good. Love this stuff. All right. Now, at this point, I could be talking all about the American Austin Company and its rise, its fall, the American Bantam Company rising from its ashes, and then also the genesis of the Jeep. But I'm not going to do that. I should save that for another episode. And it's beer 30. My favorite 30 in the whole 24 hours. Yeehaw! Now, this very informal automotive history show is not funded by anybody, not Carbach Brewing, all right? But if they did want to send me some beer, well, that would not hurt. In fact, this is such a chill show. Ooh, I love the sound of that. This is such a chill show. It is being filmed on my 2.5-year-old cracked Android, because that's how I do it. Oh, it's delicious. Mm. All right, so 1938, who do we see hop on the board of the Austin Motor Company? Well, Sir Leonard Lord. I don't know if he was knighted by then or not. I don't think he was. Anyways, you don't know who Leonard Lord is. Well, he had just hopped over from rival automotive manufacturer Morris. Some of you might be like, well, Morris. Well, Morris Garages, we can thank for MG cars. I got two. I got MGTD and MGB. Chrome bumpers. Oh, and I match butterscotch. This is my oldest brother's first car that he had, MGB. Okay, I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself, but you kind of get a little bit, things get a bit incestuous within British automotive manufacturers. Okay, so I just talked about Morris, MGB, blah, blah, blah. Well, the two would unite eventually. I think it was like 1952. The two would unite and you would have the creation of BMC, British Motor Corporation. But I am getting a little ahead of myself. Let me go back in history a bit. But let me just digress a little bit more, okay? Since I'm already talking about Leonard Lord, let me do this, okay? Now, Leonard Lord, while he was head of BMC, because he would eventually be head of BMC and maybe in charge of the merger if I remember properly. Anyways, he's head of BMC, all right? It's post-World War II, and he sees all these German bubble cars running around. The BMW Isetta, the Messerschmitt, okay? And you know who loathes German bubble cars? Sir Leonard Lord, right? You know who loves German bubble cars? This girl. I do. I have an absurdly big soft spot for the Messerschmitt and the Isetta. My cat is named after Renzo Revolta. So, anyways, I digress. So, he hated, this is where I was going with this. It's so easy to get, wander down the mind map of history. So anyways, Leonard Lord, like I said, hates these German bubble cars, okay? And so he says, well, first of all, there's a market obviously being undertapped if he's seeing so many of these. So he decides he's going to have a car of very specific dimensions, okay? 10 by 4 by 4. And you know who he asked to create this? Cojones. And you know what we got with this? You know what we got just because he hated German bubble cars? We got the freaking Mini, man. Spite. Spite'll get you a very far ways. So, all right, back to what we were talking about. Okay, not gonna lie, we really kind of got out of hand over there, but we're jumping back into the proper timeline, okay? Right around the time that we actually will see this 1949 FX3 Austin taxi. And like I like to do with these history videos, I kind of like to paint a picture of the times, okay? Let's do it. Now, what was going on in 1949? Well, Neptune had just been discovered as a planet, all right? Harry Truman was elected the President of the United States. George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984 was just published, and it feels very pertinent right now. The baby boom was in full swing, the NBA was founded, and the first Beetle was sold in the US. Now let's talk about the 1949 FX3 Austin taxi right behind me. Now the FX3 was made by Austin from 1948 to 1958, and it was designed to fit the metropolitan fitness conditions of taxis. If I got that right, I don't know. It sounds like this taxi should be able to run like an 8-minute mile or something. It is ridiculous. I'm going to tell you all about that. Metropolitan police conditions for taxis. Didn't quite get it right. Metropolitan police conditions of fitness for taxis. I was so freaking close. Okay. Metropolitan police conditions of fitness for London taxis. Oh, that was hard to do. All right. So naturally, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole trying to figure out what were these conditions, you know? And at this point, you might be wondering what that is too. Now, the Metropolitan Golly, I've already lost it. Anyways, that whole jumble of words are the very reason why London taxis are so different than the rest of the world. And most of those fitness conditions revolved around its turning radius. Now, this is interesting. So the FX3 was commissioned by Mann and Overton, and the body was done by Car Bodies of Coventry on top of an Austin chassis. Now, what powers the FX3 is a 2.2-liter overhead valve petrol engine. They would, on an all-steel body by Car Body, they would eventually have diesel engines. So like I said, originally offered in petrol, all right? But there was a lot of pressure from taxi cab owners, all right? And also demand, clearly. Petrol was expensive, diesel less so. So the Birch brothers of Kentish Town, which I feel like that's the most British thing I've said all day, they created a conversion to diesel. And after they did that, well, Austin wasn't going to leave that opportunity unsnatched. So they quickly created a diesel option. Now, the FX3 was your typical taxi configuration. You had 3 doors, and you were missing your front passenger seat. Instead, you had your luggage platform. And one of my favorite parts of this car is the for-hire, is the little meter. This is pretty darn cool. Special, still works. We're doing some neat stuff to this car right now because we've had this, it's changed hands with customers, but we've had this as a car that we've worked on for a very long time, and you can't find some of these parts anymore, so some of this we're fabricating. Quick cheers. All right, guys, well, what did you think about the Austin history? Also, my apologies for the car being a little out of sorts. It's getting worked on. We are a mechanic shop. Some of you and most of you are like, why does that blonde so into cars? Well, this is why. This is what I grew up around. Thank God. Can't imagine my life without cars. It'd be drastically boring compared to what it is now. We have a family mechanic shop. My dad's a mechanic. My brother's a mechanic. I fell in love with cars at a very early age when I saw my first Jaguar XK120. When I was 15, I got very lucky that I was such a bad kid that my dad needed to distract me with a car. So I got a 912E, 1976 912E, which they weren't worth a penny at the time. That's how we got it. And now they're cool because they're rare because they were only built in 1976. And that's just a little bit about me. Now, if you're into classic cars like I am, well, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button, which might be on one of these corners, you know what I mean? Hit the notifications, hit the like button, whatever you want to do. I make these videos because I like them, and I also want to encourage the appreciation of classic cars, because if you spread knowledge, if you increase somebody's knowledge about something, you also usually increase their appreciation for it. So that's my goal. Cheers! It's time for me to go meet my buddy Edward, one of my best friends, for a happy hour. So I hope you have a wonderful day. See you next time. Bye!